Ships are and have always been a very unique breed. Whether commercial, industrial, or military, each of them take their own special meaning and personality. This is especially evident when looking back upon the golden age of passenger ship travel, the era of the ocean liner. During this time, these vessels traversed the world's oceans, carrying thousands of passengers, cargo, and mail to different points of interest. These ships often carried with them the pride of their respective nations and people, as having the largest, fastest, and most technologically advanced ship always meant a great deal. Within this industry, there are once-in-a-generation ships that appeared that are still revered even today. From Britain's Queen Mary and Olympic, France's Normandy and Ile-de-France, Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm der Grosse and Bremen, and the United States' America and United States, the ocean liner was the quintessential symbol of progress, innovation, and power. Their construction, voyages, and the people who traveled aboard were frequently front-page news. Milestones also meant a great deal, such as having the first 1,000-foot-long ship, which was SS Normandy, or having the first to exceed 50,000 tons, which was SS Imperator. In today's passenger ship industry, predominantly the cruising industry, such national stakes and pride is less evident, but they still carry the hopes and dreams of those who built them and those who sail on them. Still, as before, there are legendary once-in-a-generation ships that appear, especially if they shatter all expectations and break seemingly untouchable milestones. Many would say the last of these cruise ships to have this was Royal Caribbean's 225,000-ton Oasis of the Seas, which entered service back in December 2009. While many impressive and innovative cruise ships have come out since then, none have approached the status, following, and hype that Oasis had before and during her first few years in service. However, a new face has appeared onto the world stage. January 10, 2024 marked the day when many saw the new wonder for the very first time with their own eyes, as she sailed into her home port for the first time. Many thousands, including myself, also watched her arrival into the port of Miami online. This ship was certainly no ordinary vessel. For over 7 years, enthusiasts and those with curious interest have been watching this project grow. Shrouded in a veil that never seemed to end, things as simple as her silhouette were unknown for much of those 7 years. Mystery was always in the air, and the hype and tension were evident. We all certainly hoped that all of the constant teasing would be worth it, and it certainly was. The new once-in-a-generation ship, one more than 50 years in the making and the culmination of all passenger ship design, was Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas. Icon of the Sea's immediate future in life is certain, but her entire life will be far from straightforward. She will have to compete in an industry that is tight, competitive, and ever-changing. Her story and outlook is no different than any other major cruise ship or ocean liner from history. Since the beginning of the ocean liner in the 1840s, every new ship had to prove itself, and it needed to stand the test of time and taste. If it was not able to do that, it would be quickly passed by the ship that could. It was a constant game of one-upsmanship, and it resulted in incredible leaps in technological growth, attitudes, and even national progress. It is no different in today's cruise industry. Icon of the Seas is coming into a new age of shipbuilding and cruising that really started in late 2018 with Celebrity Edge. Her owners knew that in order for her to succeed and to carry the company into a new era, she needed to be a literal icon, something that would force every other ship into a tight corner by being beyond anything thought possible for a passenger ship. Understanding Icon requires us to look back at the history of her owners and the posterity of ships that eventually culminated into her. In 1968, a group of 4 men, Ed Stefan, Anders Wilhelmsen, Isaac M. Skaugen, and Gotas Larsen, created a new shipping company that would capitalize on the infant cruise industry. The company, then known as Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, would be an Oslo-based company, but would operate out of Miami, Florida, due to its close proximity to the Caribbean. During this time, the once explosive and dominant ocean liner industry was beginning to dry up quickly, thanks to the sudden ushering in of the jet age. The mission and purpose of an ocean liner is the transporting of both passengers and cargo to different points around the world. They would do this on a tight and routine schedule, and in order to fulfill this mission, they had to be designed in very specific ways that would allow them to travel in the worst of conditions, should it come down to it. By the mid to late 1950s, these monstrous ships could cross the Atlantic in as little as 3.5 days, a journey that just 100 years ago took 2 to 4 weeks. But now, in the jet age, that same crossing could be made in just hours. And so, one by one, these ocean liners suddenly began to be sold off, laid up, or scrapped. Hundreds of ships no longer had a purpose and seemingly had no future. Something needed to change in order for the passenger ship industry to survive. What came out of this uncertainty was today's cruise industry. Cruising had existed in different forms since the early 1900s, but these types of voyages were definitely not the kind that we would think of today. They were meant for those who were, to put it bluntly, very inquisitive and adventurous at heart. The only time these companies really did any form of cruising was during lean times during the year, in order to ensure that their ships, especially the older ones, would continue to operate. But now was the time for this industry to emerge at the front of the stage. Starting especially in the late 1960s, numerous small companies began to pop up in order to capitalize in this uncertain and risky industry. There were a few successes, but there were also a good amount of failures and enormous losses of money. Just a few years after Royal Caribbean's founding, Carnival Cruise Line started their operations. In their first year alone, they lost $8 million. This is the type of environment that Royal Caribbean was born into. To set itself apart from all of the competition, the new company decided to do something that was basically unheard of. They designed and built their own ships. Shipbuilding is a very long, expensive process. Just the preparation and design process alone could cost a sizable amount when compared to just building the ship. Most companies were able to start up by buying off former ocean liners at cheap prices due to the fact that they were no longer wanted or needed. After the buying process, they would go through a conversion that could vary widely in quality depending on the amount of money the company was willing to sink in. But Royal Caribbean could not afford to be like every other line. They knew early on that they needed to stand out, so they took the early gamble of seeking even more capital into building their own ships. They knew that if they did this right, that the payoff would be enormous. By building their own ships, they could install and design a ship that would fulfill its mission of being a true cruise ship, working with all the available space and not being constrained to the ship that they simply purchased. On November 7, 1970, roughly 2 years after Royal Caribbean's founding, their first ship departed on her maiden voyage. Named MS Song of Norway, she was not much to look at, but she was a true disruptor in normal ship design. She was the first cruise ship to be purposely built and designed for warmer markets, something that converted ocean liners struggled with since they were commonly built for colder and harsher climates. Her interior design and layout was well thought out. To help aid passengers in staying in a comfortable space, almost all of the accommodations were put on lower decks, which are the areas that tend to have the least amount of motion should the ship pitch or roll in heavy seas, especially in the center. On the upper decks were the common spaces. Being higher up, passengers could better enjoy the great views that the Caribbean offers. The restaurant deck, which sat just above the cabin decks, featured a dining room and 2 lounges. Above that was the promenade deck, which featured another lounge, 9 suites, a veranda cafe, and a hospital. Above that was the sun deck, which had by far one of the largest pools and outdoor lounge areas ever put to sea at the time. But the most striking and industry-changing features on this new ship was a small observation lounge and bar mounted on the ship's funnel. The Viking Crown Lounge, as it is now known, gave the ability for passengers to get a very unique and exclusive view of their surroundings. Critics of the original design called it crazy and said it would upset the clean exterior profile of the ship. But Royal Caribbean knew that this feature would be a game changer, and sure enough it was. The concept was such a huge hit with travelers, and it was a very popular location in the evening just before dinner, as the red glow of the Caribbean sun began to set. Song of Norway's capacity was 724 passengers, which wasn't even remotely record-breaking, but it was larger in size compared to other ships of her kind at the time. Less than a year later, a near-identical sister entered service, the Nordic Prince, and a year after that, a third sister, Sun Viking, entered service. They saw enormous success for the time, despite all of the competition. They were so popular, in fact, that in 1978 and 1980, Song of Norway and Nordic Prince were lengthened by 85 feet in order to increase their passenger capacity by 300. The 3 members of the Song of Norway class taught the company that, in order to separate themselves from the competition, their passengers needed exposure, whether outdoors or indoors, to their surroundings. The more venues they had the opportunity to do that, the better. Companies that settled with converting ocean liners, more or less, suffered with this concept because of the limitations of the ship's design. Ocean liners were not meant to be opening and inviting to the outside. They were designed to enclose and look inward, mostly due to their mission sometimes taking them in the worst weather conditions possible at sea. They needed to keep everything in. Royal Caribbean saw great success in their early years, thanks to the pioneering design of Song of Norway and her sisters. However, they couldn't keep up with demand by simply lengthening their current ships. Not only did it mean that 33% of their fleet would be out of service for a few months at a time, but the process itself was not wholly beneficial from a cost standpoint. Song of Norway's conversion came out at almost the same price as how much it took to build her in the first place. The company decided that to keep up with demand, and to take the company into a bigger, bolder direction, an entirely new ship needed to be designed. Building on the success of the Song of Norway class, Royal Caribbean wanted this new ship to expand on the ability for their passengers to have as much exposure as possible, but they also needed to expand further in the comfort and entertainment of their passengers. To help them realize this concept, they turned to highly respected marine architect Njal Ide, who had previously designed Norwegian America lines Saga Fjord and Vista Fjord. What he was able to bring to the table was very unique. He and Royal Caribbean decided that this new ship would have a vastly different layout to the previous class, having most of the passenger accommodation forward and the public rooms aft. This layout design is very similar to ones found on Scandinavian ferries. By having the accommodations forward, it would allow the passengers to sleep better thanks to being farther away from the noisy machinery in the aft section. The public spaces would also be massively expanded, but most would, in a similar manner to previous ships, be conveniently located on just 2 decks. The Viking Crown Lounge would also return, but this time, instead of being relegated to just 180-degree aft views, the passengers would now enjoy a larger 360-degree viewing space. Like Song of Norway before her, it would also encircle the funnel. In keeping with the need to provide the large amounts of outdoor space, she would feature a huge exposed pool deck that would have 2 seemingly oversized pools and seating for over 1,000 passengers. Ide was also a fan of curves, so starting with this new ship, lots and lots of curves and circular objects would be found throughout the design of the exterior as well as the interior furnishings. In December 1982, Song of America entered service at a cost of an astonishing $140 million. Right away, she was put on one of the busiest cruising routes at the time. She started out sailing out of Miami to cruise for 7 nights to San Juan and St. Thomas. Passengers found her size to be very impressive, as she was double the size of Song of Norway at 37,854 gross tons. She was a huge hit, having continued the trend that the company had set with Song of Norway with their numerous viewing areas and vast open decks. But one big drawback that was found by some of the passengers was the size of the cabins. Thinking that passengers would want to spend more of their time in the public areas or out on shore, rather than staying in their rooms for longer periods of time, Royal Caribbean opted to have more, but smaller, cabins in order to fulfill the need to have more berths. Song of America taught the company how important layout is, especially regarding the relationship between accommodations and public spaces. It also taught them that by increasing in size, construction costs were actually more reasonable, that more berths could be installed, and that the huge increase in floor volume allowed them to play with a larger amount of canvas, and that in turn would allow them to install even more features that passengers sometimes didn't even know that they wanted. Despite the fanfare of Song of America, their competition continued to grow in their own way. The fight for the top and for the hearts and minds of the traveling public was getting heated. By the late 1980s, cruising was becoming an industry that actually began to rival the ocean liner industry of the early 20th century. In 1984, Royal Caribbean had about 11% of the cruise market, but their competition, specifically Norwegian Cruise Line and Carnival Cruise Line, were beating them. Norwegian had 14% of the market share, and Carnival had 15%. To make things even worse, Chronicle came out with a trio of 47,000-ton ships that started to make them more of a household name. Song of America could not bear this load by herself in this environment. Royal Caribbean still only had 4 ships, and 3 of them really could not put up a fight in this arena. They needed to expand massively in order to win, and that meant the introduction of more ships. What these new ships needed to be was a hard sell for most of the executives. They thought it best to build a slightly bigger version of Song of America and maybe add a few venues here and there. After all, that would be more cost effective. The true innovators of the company knew that that was not good enough if they wanted to win this battle, saying among other things that they needed a huge vessel, numerous new venues, and even more space for accommodations. Management was reluctant, but they eventually saw the need and agreed with the idea. Plans then immediately began to be drawn up for the next revolution in shipbuilding, Sovereign of the Seas. At first glance, Sovereign of the Seas just looks like a vaguely bigger version of Song of America. While that may be somewhat true from an aesthetic standpoint, that does not mean she is exactly the same everywhere. The design process alone was vastly different from anything before. Thanks to her brilliant designers, she ended up completely revolutionizing the entire cruise industry and made Royal Caribbean a household name. Starting off, she was almost double the size of Song of America, coming in at 73,529 gross tons. Her floor area was also large, coming out at 710,415 square feet. While Song of America's passenger capacity was 1,575, Sovereign of the Seas was 2,673. Construction of the new megaship came out at about $190 million, $50 million more than her predecessor. Because of her sheer size, very few shipyards could handle the construction. Eventually, the Chantiers de l'Antique shipyard in Saint-Nazaire, France, was awarded the contract. That is the very same shipyard that built legendary ocean liners like the SS Normandy. The biggest revolution that came from her was the vertical atrium. On Sovereign, the 5-story epicenter was called the Centrum. Ide felt that one big thing that was missing on these new cruise ships was a common gathering spot. He wanted an area that mimicked town squares of old. By adding this atrium, natural light was allowed to shine down into the space below, allowing for a more open and welcoming atmosphere. It allowed for many of the public venues, such as the dining rooms, entertainment venues, shops, and pool deck to be easily accessible. The glass elevators, sweeping staircases, and overlook areas made passengers feel as if they were on a luxury hotel on land, rather than a small, cramped vessel at sea. This one addition is now a virtual requirement for any cruise ship now in service. Every cruise ship built immediately after Sovereign copied this idea in one way or another, the only exception being Norwegian Cruise Line's Dreamward. Completed just 4 years later, she was criticized for not having a similar space. Her accommodation size was also increased by 3% from ships before. The cabin layout followed the pattern set by Song of America, with most of them being in the forward half of the ship. 212 of her 1,141 cabins could accommodate at least 4 people, making her a more attractive option for families. She was the first Royal Caribbean vessel to feature an indoor cafe, champagne bar, casino, and health spa. Most of the public venues on previous ships had usually been a single story tall. On Sovereign, almost every single one was multiple stories tall. Even the Windjammer Cafe, Royal Caribbean's casual buffet, was given a 2-story treatment. Like her predecessors, she offered many different opportunities for her guests to be directly or indirectly exposed to their surroundings. She had a Viking Crown Lounge that was of similar design to Song of America. She also had floor-to-ceiling windows in many of her public venues, a large pool deck with 2 large pools, bars, and a huge amount of seating areas. The open deck size was the equivalent of 50 tennis courts or 3 football fields. Sovereign was the first cruise ship that really began to resemble the ocean liners of the past, especially in her exterior appearance regarding size and her construction. Another huge innovation was not really Sovereign herself, but how she was operated. Before her entry into service in January 1988, most cruises were at the very least 7 days long, but they tended to run closer to 14 days in length. In order to attract more individuals and families, Royal Caribbean decided to operate her on consistent 7-night Eastern and Western Caribbean cruises, a seemingly simple but brilliant move. 2 sisters of Sovereign would be built, Monarch of the Seas, which came out in 1991, and Majesty of the Seas, which entered service in 1992. The Sovereign sisters taught Royal Caribbean more than ever that big was best for many. It also showed that people adore venues that are sizable, open, and bring large amounts of natural light inside. If there is a space that replicates grand hotels on land, many people tend to gravitate towards those locations. The increase in cabin space, ability to hold additional people per cabin, and the short, consistent cruising schedule allowed for more families and groups of friends to cruise, thereby increasing the company's revenue, brand name, and favorability towards the traveling public. Thanks to the new Sovereign class, Royal Caribbean's revenue and popularity saw new and exciting growth. But with that growth came this eventual problem: not enough berths to fulfill demand, which is definitely not the worst problem to have. By Majesty's entering into service in 1992, Royal Caribbean began to look at continuing to build up their fleet further. Around this time, a new trend began to emerge into the industry: balcony cabins. At the same time, a new cruise ship layout was also being pioneered. The layout consisted of the lifeboats being placed within the ship's outer hull towards the lower center decks. Within that would be the majority of the public rooms. Below that would be most of the interior or ocean view cabins. Above the public room decks would be the new balcony room cabins. Thanks to being high up, they were not as prone to the rough sea, and they did not need to be sheltered. Royal Caribbean felt that these new types of cabins would be a great choice for the average passenger, and that this newer layout should be incorporated into the design of their new class. This new series of ships would be unique for several reasons, chief among which were the differences in exterior design. The main goal of the Vision Sisters was to continue the success of Royal Caribbean's previous ships, especially on viewing the outside world. They would feature over 2 acres of glass around the public areas, including around most of the main dining room, which allowed passengers near unrivaled views of the ocean at all times. Depending on which ship you go on, the layout externally and internally would be different. This depended on where and when the ship was built. The first 2 in the Vision series, Legend of the Seas and Splendor of the Seas, entered service in 1995 and 1996, and they were built at the Transatlantic shipyard. The funnel in these ships are located at the center, thanks to the engine machinery being located in the center. Their Viking Crown Lounge, as a result, encircles the funnel as it always had on their previous ships. The next 2, Grandeur of the Seas and Enchantment of the Seas, are slightly bigger and have their funnel at the aft, leaving the Viking Crown Lounge on its own. That is due to the engine machinery being placed aft rather than in the center. One side benefit of this is that the atrium inside is able to let in even more natural light than the previous 2. They were built at the Kavernamassa shipyards in Helsinki, Finland, and entered service in 1996 and 1997. The last 2 in the series, Rhapsody of the Seas and Vision of the Seas, are slightly bigger yet again, and were also built at the Chantiers shipyard, but they have the aft funnel design rather than the central funnel design. The Vision class ships really only reinforce the known concept that many of Royal Caribbean's current passengers love the ability to look out to their surroundings, even while being inside. By adding the large amounts of glass and the balcony rooms, it set themselves apart from the competition in their previous ships. But now was the time for real change in the industry. The competition was growing and getting hotter, and Royal Caribbean needed to find more ways to attract even more people. The company had already developed a good reputation, but they felt that there was a huge potential market for what are called non-cruisers out there. That is, people who are not willing to go on cruises for various reasons, mostly minor in nature. The most typical answers as to why are some of the following. The ships typically do not have enough choice and venues for all ages. They do not have enough variety and entertainment. And overall, they are usually not family-oriented enough. As we have covered so far, Royal Caribbean has had some pretty impressive and industry-changing ships. But if they wanted to grow even further and tap into this potentially untouched market, they needed another Sovereign of the Seas moment. Before diving into the events that followed in the late 1990s, we need to quickly talk about 2 men that played an essential role in turning the company into what it is today. The first individual is named Richard Fain. He had been tied with the company since its early days, mostly as serving as the vice president of finance of one of their original investors, Claude Larsen. Fain has a remarkable talent for interpreting numbers and pursuing seemingly crazy but well thought out ideas. He also had an almost natural ability to build areas of the ship inside his head and come up with seemingly trivial but brilliant solutions to any problem that was brought up to him. Around the time that the Sovereign of the Seas entered service, he was given the opportunity to prove himself by becoming CEO of Royal Caribbean. Following the launches of the Sovereign and Vision classes, he faced the challenges of expanding further and wanted to take the company into a new direction. He clearly saw the opportunity to bring in a completely new group of customers, the non-cruisers. To attract them, he knew that their new ships would need to be radically different in design, function, and feel. To help in this new venture, he brought on board another visionary man in 1995, Harri Kalevara, a Finnish naval architect who had previously specialized in designing well-appointed passenger ferries. When presented with the ideas for the new class, which was essentially an upscaled version of Sovereign, Fain told Kalevara that, "We are not going to build this. We need something better." It certainly did not take much convincing Kalevara, as he felt exactly the same way. What both men knew was that in order to attract this new group, the ships needed to offer more choice and variety in entertainment, food, venues, activities, and cabins. Designing a ship that would fulfill this criteria required the designers to have a completely different mindset. Their future cruise ships could no longer just be nice hotels gone to sea. They needed to be literal cities gone to sea. Tied in with that was the shift in attitudes that they needed to not only provide a cruise experience like no other, but a vacation like no other. Lists of possible choices for what would be included were soon created. Very quickly, the designers realized that this ship would need to be massive. The results of all this work, Voyager of the Seas and her four sisters, Explorer, Adventure, Navigator, and Mariner. Just like Sovereign before, she completely revolutionized the industry. Her many choices of venues of food, activities, and entertainment, which included the first ice skating rink at sea, opened up this new passenger market. Cruising was no longer seen as the place where the newlyweds and the old people go. It was now an enjoyable experience for all, and compromises were now at an all-time low. By far the most innovative part of the Voyager class was the introduction of the horizontal atrium, which the company calls the Royal Promenade. Placed between two vertical atriums, it is a several hundred-foot-long, multi-story venue that mimics a city street. Inside are numerous cafes, bars, lounges, entertainment venues, and passageways that connect to other large areas, such as the main dining room and theater. Coming in at just under 140,000 tons each, the Voyagers were the largest passenger ships in the world by a large margin. Nothing came close in terms of their size and offerings to the general public. They showed that this relatively untapped market could not only be tapped, but could and would bring in thousands upon thousands of new and loyal cruisers. Size was also seen, once again, as a huge benefit. Not only did it mean that they could put in more berths, but also meant that there would be large amounts of floor area to install any number of never-before-seen attractions and venues. The City at Sea concept was a home run. Something else that happened in the late 1990s was the complete restructuring of the cruise line. Royal Caribbean bought the Greek-based line known as Celebrity Cruises and decided to allow them to run as a sister company. Royal Caribbean then changed their name from Royal Caribbean Cruise Line to Royal Caribbean International, and any sister companies or brands would fall under the newly created Royal Caribbean Group. More and more destinations in remote locations also began to pop up as well. Because of that, the newly named Royal Caribbean International wanted to create a class of modern ships to help facilitate those areas, which often had the most spectacular scenery. They had already proven their design choices when it came to giving passengers the opportunity to be able to expose to their surroundings. All they needed to do was simply modernize it all. Rather than go big and bold like the Voyagers, they decided the new class should be smaller. This would allow them to dock in numerous smaller and harder to reach ports around the world, be more versatile in transitioning between areas, be able to cross through the Panama Canal, and provide a more intimate feeling for the passengers. The result of this was the 4 members of the Radiance Class. Featuring over 3 acres of glass on each ship, a lot of the public venues have floor-to-ceiling views of everything outside. Some of the top deck structures, such as the solarium, have the capability to be enclosed or exposed thanks to a retractable roof. Even the ship's vertical atrium features an entire side covered by glass. Radiance of the Seas and her sisters Brilliance, Serenade, and Jewel were the perfect additions in an ever-growing company. While the Voyagers focused on the popular and common markets, the Radiances and Visions could focus on the lesser or harder-to-reach markets. Just as before, Royal Caribbean's now explosive numbers demanded even more berths. So in response, and for really the first time in their history, they created another class of ships in the mid-2000s that were essentially scaled-up versions of their predecessor. The Freedom, Liberty, and Independence of the Seas are Voyager Class ships that are lengthened to include more cabins and new venues. Despite the overall similarity, they have new features that the Voyagers don't. In continuation with adding the best variety of features possible, including ones not found at sea, the Freedoms have things like a surf simulator and 40% more pool space than the Voyagers. They even have 2 cantilevered hot tubs that overlook the sides of the ship. Immediately, Royal Caribbean saw major success with this class. Freedom of the Seas alone had the highest number of family bookings than any of their previous ships. Royal Caribbean was once again in a good place, but the competition was catching up, especially Carnival Cruise Line. By the mid to late 2000s, it became clear that something new needed to happen. All the other major cruise lines were now successfully taking the same approach that Royal Caribbean started with the Voyagers, of attracting non-cruisers. Carnival was also in the process of designing a class of megaships that would dwarf the Freedoms and would easily steal away passengers. Simply building another Freedom member or creating a ship of similar feel, look, or size was not going to cut it. Fane and Colavara knew right away that something truly radical needed to be built. Little did they know that the original intent would grow far beyond anything they could have dreamed of. It is hard to put into words just how much of a leap in progress the resulting class really is. The Oasis Class completely overhauled what a cruise ship could be. Each record-breaking vessel came in at over 225,000 gross tons, and featured numerous locations for all sorts of purposes. They have a split superstructure down the center, which allows for even more space for possible passenger use. Among their many introductions was the neighborhood concept. These are areas or sections of the ship that are dedicated to a specific purpose, theme, and crowd. They have their own unique venues as a result. Two revolutionary neighborhoods on board include Central Park, the first ever live garden at sea, and the Boardwalk, an area reminiscent of Atlantic City. However, one glaring difference between the Oasis class and previous Royal Caribbean ships is the lack of outward-looking areas around the ship. While this is a negative for many, it is a positive for many others. The Oasis class was designed in part to really attract those who have more unfavorable views of the sea, especially in rougher conditions. By increasing the overall dimensions, especially the width, the ships are naturally more stable. The venues within the ship would allow those with a more unfavorable view to feel enclosed, ensuring that compromises were not needed absolutely everywhere. This worked, but for many this is a drawback. Like the Vision class before, the Oasises can be split into groups of 3. The first two included Oasis of the Seas and Allure of the Seas. The next two, Harmony of the Seas and Symphony of the Seas, improved the Oasis design by largely incorporating some features found on a separate class that we will talk about later. As a result of the improvements, which included some of the company's first water slides, the tonnage slightly increased to just under 230,000. The last pair, Wonder of the Seas and Utopia of the Seas, are very much modernized versions of the over 10-year-old design. A lot of the outdoor and interior spaces were completely redone, and as a result, are more versatile and family-friendly. When one looks at the maximum possible passenger capacity of each of these vessels, they will quickly wonder how almost 7,000 people can be on one ship. Because of the simple but brilliant neighborhood concept, these ships are able to separate all of these passengers into different areas with ease. The fear that major cruise lines always had was that putting too many people on one ship would ruin the major goal of cruising and vacationing. While not everyone could be satisfied, they did show, as they did in the past, that a ship's layout, if done correctly, goes a long way in assuring that not everyone will be in the same place at the same time. Royal Caribbean were the first to push this seemingly unforgivable and suicidal boundary, and they did so seemingly without effort. Immediately afterward, all major cruise lines began to at least double the size of their vessels. As Royal Caribbean discovered far in the past, they found the many values in increasing in size, which allowed their ships to be cities gone to sea. Another purposeful limitation of the Oasis class is the lack of all-climate venues. Most of the public spaces are completely exposed and are not meant to be enclosed. They were designed to satisfy the most demanding markets, the Caribbean and the Mediterranean, which are areas with pretty stable and consistent climates. Royal Caribbean knew that harsher markets like Alaska and Australia were quickly growing in popularity, and they did not want to risk losing out to the competition. That is why, as the Oasis and Allure began to prove themselves at home, they went ahead and pursued another large class of vessels focused on those newer markets in the early 2010s. Design inspiration for this new all-climate class largely came from the designs of another class in Royal Caribbean's sister line, Celebrity Cruises. They had come out with a new type of ship starting in 2008 with Celebrity Solstice. She and her sisters Equinox, Eclipse, Silhouette, and Reflection were all designed with similar criteria in mind. Taking lessons learned from that class and applying what Royal Caribbean learned with their own previous ships, especially from the Radiance Class, they created their new generation of versatile ships, the Quantum Class. Each of these ships have the strong ability, just like the Solstice Class, to cruise in all kinds of locations. No matter what the conditions or terrain they sail in, they can do it and do it well. Their passengers have the ability to really take in their surroundings even while inside. They also pioneered many different forms of technology that really set them apart from the rest. One of the most striking features found only on these ships is the North Star Observation Pod. Talk about taking in those views to a whole new level. By stepping inside, each individual gets the opportunity to see everything around them from 300 feet in the air. All but one of the 5 members of the class debuted and cruise in locations that are not normally the go-to for a brand new ship. But thanks to their design, passengers hardly need to compromise. Almost all of the public spaces are enclosed or have the ability to be enclosed, making the ship so much more efficient in use than others. In the latter years of the 2010s, Royal Caribbean had once again found a great balance in their fleet that allowed them to compete hard. In the most demanding markets were the very popular and award-winning Oasis Class vessels, which offered so much for so many. Below them were the Freedom and Voyager vessels. They too had so much to offer, but they gave many cruisers the ability to go on more affordable and versatile voyages. In the harsher and harder to reach markets were the Quantum and Radiant ships. Their design and size allows them to offer guests the best locations to view the world, and do so in ships that cater to all kinds of people and needs. Even their older ships, ones from the Vision class, could cater to those kinds of locations, but do so in a more traditional way. But yet again, competition was beginning to catch up. Tastes were changing, and the demanding markets wanted something different. By the mid to late 2010s, cruise lines knew that even the exterior design of their ships needed to change into something more inviting, something that would be fresh and would bring a sense of awe and wonder. They couldn't simply be utilitarian anymore. Form couldn't follow function. And who better to kickstart this new generation of passenger ships than the innovative minds and members of the Royal Caribbean brand? The new and evolutionary shipbuilding campaign began all the way back in 2016. It was a big year for them, having 2 large vessels enter service within a span of several weeks. In April, the Quantum Class's 3rd member, the nearly 169,000-ton Ovation of the Seas, entered service. Just a month later, the newest and largest passenger ship in the world started her career, the 227,000-ton Harmony of the Seas. The company's sister line, Celebrity Cruises, was also in the design phase of their new generation of cruise ships, then known as Project Edge, which would later become a series of 5 sisters which broke many of the rules in typical cruise ship design, especially regarding the exterior. The first member, Celebrity Edge, was the first large passenger ship to be completely designed using VR and 3D technology, which allowed for, among other things, passenger, crew, and engineering spaces to be designed with the utmost efficiency in terms of use of space. This time of new growth was the perfect opportunity to pursue a new breed of cruise ship, one that would be both evolutionary and revolutionary for the industry. On October 10, 2016, Royal Caribbean announced that a whole new class of ships were in the beginnings of design. A memorandum was given to the Meyer Turku shipyard, located in Turku, Finland, to help design the new class. Included in the agreement, and according to documents later posted online, the endeavor was known as Project Icon. The 2 vessels would have a capacity of 5,000 passengers, would be the company's first ships to be powered by liquefied natural gas, or LNG, and have fuel cell technology. The ships were expected to be delivered by Q2 2022 and Q2 2024 respectively. Like the Quantum Class before, this new series for Royal Caribbean would be based somewhat off the design choices of celebrities' projects, specifically the Edge Class, but with a Royal Caribbean twist. From the onset, they wanted to pursue what they call a white paper ship, that is, a ship designed from a blank sheet of paper. These ships needed to be revolutionary, but the design team also knew that it was imperative that equal amounts of care should be taken for evolutionary and traditional choices. An almost or purely revolutionary vessel, throughout all of passenger ship history, usually did not do so well in myriads of ways. All of this was behind the scenes, however. Royal Caribbean, more so than ever, would be very secretive regarding anything related to Project Icon. Only a careful handful of leaks and statements would be given to the general public for the next few years, especially as the project was developed beyond a concept. But that never prevented people, such as myself, from digging deep, trying to find any information they could on this new project. Just 7 days after the announcement, Royal Caribbean filed a trademark for the name Icon of the Seas, somewhat hinting that the lead vessel would have that name. However, as discussed in detail in my Oasis video, they trademark a lot of potential names, and hardly any of them actually get used. For the next year, almost no information regarding Project Icon was released. It really wasn't until January 2019 that some potential new information came out. By this time, Celebrity Edge had been in service for over a month, and was proving to be a breath of fresh air in passenger ship design. One innovative part of her design is the infinite veranda, one of the types of cabins that can be found on board. Rather than having a separate balcony outside of the room, as is traditional, the room actually extends all the way to the edge and has a floor-to-ceiling glass panel that also doubles as a railing when lowered. When asked about the potential future of Royal Caribbean, CEO Michael Bailey stated the following: "Edge has a lot of innovation. We need time to assess what works well and what doesn't, but we will take on some elements and put them on Icon Class and potentially Oasis 5. To drive us cruise ship nerds even more nuts, in July of the same year, Royal Caribbean announced the order of a third Icon vessel to be delivered in 2025 by Meyer Turku. Clearly something big was under development. For comparison, the Oasis Class, known as Project Genesis during the design and early building phase, originally started as a one firm order with the possibility of a second. We hardly knew anything about these vessels, and now 3 of them were on order. Michael Bailey also stated in the release, "These are exciting times for Royal Caribbean, and we will have an incredible partner in Meyer Turku to bring to life now 3 vessels of what will be a remarkable class of ships." After this, they once again went into radio silence, leaving everyone to speculate. During this period of a never-ending vacuum, a few photos had been leaked from one of the Meyer Group shipyards, showing Project Icon's potential tonnage. First, 2 slots were shown with a tonnage of 200,000 gross registered tons, simply labeled RCI. Then another surfaced that showed 232,500 gross registered tons. This somewhat unofficially confirmed at the time that the new class would be, at some length, slightly smaller than the newer members of the Oasis Class, but definitely bigger than the Quantum Class. It was things like this that kept interest running, but the never-ending vacuum continued well into the year that uprooted everything. In September 2020, well into the coronavirus outbreak, another tidbit of information was given. Royal Caribbean's Senior Vice President of Architectural Design said the concept was still in its early design phase, but the delivery dates were still 2022 and 2024 on the first 2 ships. At the time, many shipbuilding schedules and deliveries were completely thrown out of the window. Royal Caribbean and Meyer Werft were especially having a heck of a time trying to keep up with completing and delivering Odyssey of the Seas at the time. It seemed inevitable that Project Icon would also be delayed at some point. Sure enough, an updated schedule was presented in March 2021. A number of ships from various yards were included in the list, and among the group was the unnamed Icon trio. Interestingly, among the new dates, eagle-eyed viewers noticed that the berth count had been updated from 5,000 to 5,600, almost matching the number found on the Oasis Class. Icon 1, also known as New Build 1400, now had a delivery date of Q3 2023. Icon 2, or New Build 1401, was Q2 2025. And Icon 3 had Q2 2026 as her completion date. To hype up attention, Michael Bailey stated that the Icon class would be a game changer, on par with how much Oasis of the Seas was back in 2009. He said the design, which had been in the works for about 4 years, was based on 3 pillars that would get equal play in the final product: traditional, evolutionary, and revolutionary. But still no concrete information was coming out. Not even an official name had been released. However, that was all about to change. In late May 2021, several photographs were released showing actual pieces of Icon 1. The 2 blocks, which were on their way to the Neptune Werft shipyard in Rostock, Germany, were clearly part of the compartment where the 2 LNG tanks would be stored. It was a clear indicator for many that progress was ongoing and that more information would soon follow. Just several weeks later, on June 14th, construction officially began on New Build 1400 at the Meyer Turku shipyard with the steel cutting ceremony. Royal Caribbean also finally confirmed the name of the first vessel with a short 22-second video. The first vessel, as speculated all the way back in October 2016, would be named Icon of the Seas. In an interesting twist, rather than carving out an outline of the ship as is typical, the plasma laser only cut out the company's crown and anchor logo with the ship's name. At the very least though, construction was finally underway, even if something as simple but momentous as Icon's silhouette was still a mystery. In order to learn more, all eyes turned to both the Meyer Turku and Neptune Werft shipyards to see pieces of Icon come to fruition. The most visible work early on was at Neptune Werft. By October, the 2 90-foot-long, 307-ton LNG tanks were placed into the LNG block seen a few months prior. By New Year's 2022, much of the steelwork had already been cut out and massive structures began to be assembled in various locations throughout Europe. Modern cruise ships are built using what's called the block system. Rather than building the ship all at once in a dry dock from scratch, various large steel blocks of individual locations are formed. To start off, steel plates are cut out and assembled into a section of one deck. It is built upside down in order for workers to get easy access and pre-installing much of the ductwork, piping, and electrical systems ahead of time. Once complete, it is flipped upright. Once several decks of the same block are complete, they are welded together into one grand block. Hundreds of these grand blocks are eventually assembled together to create the ship. This system is remarkably efficient and is what allows Meyer Turku to work on 2, possibly even 3 cruise ships at the same time. Several of the hull grand blocks started making their way towards Turku in early January 2022, and despite the blizzards hitting Finland at the time, pictures emerged of the arrival, giving us a taste of what Icon would possibly look like. At the same time, another photo emerged from the shipyard of a black sphere 50 feet in diameter. Of course, no one knew what it was at the time, but it clearly was going to be some sort of public feature. Royal Caribbean released some photos of their own of the mysterious object a few days later, which showed it in greater detail. There were a lot of guesses as to its purpose, some of which included an IMAX theater, planetarium, 4D, or bungee jump experience. By spring, the dry dock, which was previously occupied by Carnival Cruise Line's Carnival Celebration, was empty, and many of the ground blocks were either already ready to go or were in progress. The time had finally come to begin assembling Icon. On April 4th, 2022, during a rainy, overcast day, members of Royal Caribbean and Meyer Turku gathered inside the dry dock for Icon's keel laying ceremony, which marked the beginning of the assembly process. Before placing the block down, several coins meant to bring Icon good luck were placed below the block. They would be retrieved once Icon floated out later that year. Michael Bailey took the opportunity to give another teaser regarding the ship. He said, "5 years ago, we began dreaming of Icon of the Seas, and now the next phase of this iconic adventure is beginning. As this game-changing ship takes shape, the excitement from families and travelers alike, travel advisors, and our partners continues to build. Later this year, we will reveal the lineup of firsts and favorites that will set a new standard for vacations come fall 2023. This ship is unbelievable." It was then revealed that Icon would be homeported in Miami, Florida, but would first make her premiere in Southampton, the very same port that legendary ocean liners like RMS Titanic departed from, sometime in late 2023 before heading out to the Caribbean later on. Assembly of the ground blocks proceeded at a rapid pace. Just a month later, parts of the superstructure were already being installed. By mid-May, it became clear that Icon would have a split superstructure, similar to what is on the Oasis Class. The mysterious sphere also made a return, now being covered by a white foil. A section of the stern featuring part of the nameplate was posted online on the very same day that the 175 metric ton sphere was installed. As June became July, much of the central superstructure and lifeboat deck was installed. The 2 bridge ground blocks came out of the hangar during this time, giving everyone the first idea of what Icon's face would look like. It seemed almost inevitable at this point that Royal Caribbean would finally release any rendering of what she would turn into. Starting in August 2022, Royal Caribbean started releasing monthly videos under the banner Making an Icon. The first video gave viewers a taste of what went into the design process and what guests could expect from a broad standpoint. Although no renderings were released, there was a very small tease of Icon's bow that could be found in the background of one shot. It seemed to indicate that she would have a parabolic bow, rather than a traditional raked or flared bow. The shape was confirmed just several weeks later, as 3 sections of Icon's bow made their way to Meyer Turku. Most of the accommodation part of the superstructure had been assembled together by September, with parts of the upper decks now being worked on. In late September, Icon's face began to be put together. In the second Making an Icon episode, a lot of different views of the progressing construction were shown, and numerous small teases could be found throughout. I personally made a long list of some of the things that were teased from this video. Here are just a few of the things I wrote down. She would have a big name text, similar to what can be found on Odyssey of the Seas and Wonder of the Seas. She would be the largest ship built at Meyer Turku, being, among other things, 1,197 feet long. She would feature infinite balconies, have yellow and white lifeboats, have a water park feature, possibly around the large poles on the starboard aft area that could be seen in construction photographs. There was also the possibility of an aqua theater. Clearly, she would have a Central Park neighborhood, and a asymmetric pool deck similar to what is on the Celebrity Edge. One thing that was especially difficult to find but was in the video was the undeniable fact that she would have 5 bow thrusters. But by far the best thing during this time was actually not the teases, it was the highly anticipated but somewhat leaked announcement that Icon's reveal would occur in late October. Most of us enthusiasts thought it would be October 18th, as there was a scheduled event in Miami that day. In the meantime, more aerial photographs continued to be posted. 3 weeks turned into 2, and 2 into 1. The 18th was getting tantalizingly close. However, on October 17th, it was revealed by Royal Caribbean that Icon's unveiling would be on October 20th, not the 18th. Well, it was a letdown, but at least there was now an official date. I and many others have been waiting since October 2016 to see what Icon would be. But to give us a break, a few close-up shots of Icon were teased in a short video, which definitely confirmed a lot of rumors regarding the design. It is safe to say that I did not sleep much on the night of the 19th. Dawn was magnificent. October 20th had finally arrived, and at 8:15, I and thousands of others watched episode 3 of Making an Icon. The moment of reveal was here. Just a few minutes in, my jaw was already on the floor. Icon of the Seas was unlike anything I could have possibly dreamed of, and it was certainly not what I was expecting. Many details were released outside of the video regarding spaces, dimensions, and itineraries, which included the news that Icon would not be premiering in Southampton, but rather in Miami in January 2024. It was also the first true confirmation that Icon would be the largest passenger ship ever built. She was not going to be 200,000 or 232,500 tons as previously thought. No, she was going to be 250,800 gross registered tons, making her the first ever passenger ship to exceed 250,000 tons. Bookings for Icon began on October 24th for travel agencies and members of Royal Caribbean's loyalty program. Public bookings began the following day, and I don't think I need to tell you that the prices became very high very quickly. I booked my cabin the second it came out for loyalty members, which was around 12:30 a.m. for me, and by sunrise my room category had doubled in price. Cruises on Icon consisted of 7-night alternating Eastern and Western Caribbean cruises out of Miami, with each one stopping at Royal Caribbean's highly popular private island in the Bahamas, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Royal Caribbean stated just a few days later that bookings for Icon's cruises had shattered all kinds of records, including having the highest number of cruises booked in a single day. It was a clear indicator that the hype machine they had created for all of these years, coupled with Icon's stunning design, had paid off. The Maiden Voyage alone had virtually sold out within 2 days. For the next month, much of the upper structures were installed, including both funnels. In early November, the process commenced of lifting and securing the largest single structure ever lifted for a passenger ship onto Icon. The 363-ton glass and steel dome that would come to rest on Icon's forward superstructure had been assembled together during the previous 4 months behind the stern. In a carefully planned operation, the dome was lifted up, moved the entire length of the ship forward, and secured. It took 6 hours alone to fit the dome in the correct spot. With winter now fully engulfing Turku, major assembly of all of Icon's ground blocks was completed. It was now early December. It had taken under 9 months from keel laying to completing the assembly process. With everything cleared out of the dry dock and hull inspections completed, on the 9th of December, the dry dock was flooded and Icon began to float for the first time. It is a moment that many consider as the birth of a ship. The following night, the forward door to the dock was removed, and several tugs slowly pulled Icon out. She was later tied up to the fitting out berth just a ship length ahead. With the dry dock now unoccupied and drained, Meyer Turku could start the assembly process of the next ship, which was TUI Cruises Mein Schiff 7. Shortly thereafter, on February 14, 2023, construction began on Icon's sister, NB 1401. In this steel cutting ceremony, unlike Icon's, a silhouette was carved out of the steel plates, but in typical Royal Caribbean fashion, mystery had to be in the air, so the name of 1401 was not announced. As Icon's interior continued to be worked on, Royal Caribbean continued to slowly release more information on all sorts of subjects, including new and returning venues, entertainment options, and engineering feats. Bookings didn't slow down as time went on. Well into May, they were seeing quarterly returns higher than expected, and booking rates on Icon far exceeding any inaugural season they had previously seen, despite the sometimes seemingly ludicrous prices. Coming warmer temperatures meant the removal of the extensive canvas sheets covering most of Icon's exterior, which were there to help shield workers during the winter. By removing the sheets, progress could finally be seen, especially around the exposed upper decks and structures. It also meant much of the paintwork on the exterior could begin. One of the first places concentrated on was the bow on the port side. Clearly the shipyard wanted the name text to be done for the next milestone in Icon's construction: sea trials. Sea trials are a series of tests that every ship must go through. All sorts of drills, tests, and maneuvers are performed, all of which fall under some sort of category, which can include seaworthiness, performance, navigation, evacuation, and emergency response. Although scheduled for June 18th, departure had to be delayed due to high winds. The next day, June 19th, all systems were go. Under the assistance of several tugs, Icon pulled away from the fitting out pier and slowly made her way down the channel into the Baltic Sea. This first round of sea trials would primarily focus on Icon's seaworthiness and performance. Simply put, they wanted to see what she would do and how she would respond by doing X, Y, or Z. For the next 4 days, Icon was put through her paces and pushed to the max. Late on the 22nd, she returned home, being tied back up by nightfall, having passed all of her tests well. Work could now resume on transforming her into a passenger ship. The exterior saw a big push in progress during the third quarter, with, among other things, the starboard name text being completed in August. In September, the first of the many external lighting features began to be tested. The first major one was the 2 company logos found on either side near the funnels. It was here in the timeline that a move no one saw coming was actuated. Royal Caribbean decided to release Icon's itinerary for 2025 and 2026 in mid-September, several months before the rest of the fleet. Clearly, Icon's hype was still high. She was being so heavily booked that additional cruises needed to be put out early. And in another move that seemed out of the blue, on October 9th, Icon's sister finally received a name. New build 1401 would be named Star of the Seas. Back in January 2022, Royal Caribbean had released an online poll of 4 possible name choices for the sister that people could vote on. Star won over the others, which were Idol of the Seas, Love of the Seas, and Queen of the Seas. Within the month, Star's keel blocks began to arrive at Meyer Turku, while Icon was being prepared for her next round of sea trials, scheduled for later that month. In preparation, her new lifeboats individually did tests in the harbor for several weeks. Icon herself did several rounds of inclining tests with the assistance of 2 tugs, in order to find things like her center of gravity and to test her stability. During a routine hull inspection, divers discovered something unusual on the forward part of the hull. Still somehow wedged onto her keel, the lucky coins placed during the keel laying ceremony were found to still be attached to the hull. Usually these coins are retrieved after the float out, but they could not be found anywhere afterward. So after sitting in the water for almost a year and having been through 4 days of maneuvering, they somehow stayed attached. Those must be some very lucky coins, and they were retrieved following the discovery. Icon's departure was delayed just as it was for the first round of trials, but she successfully left the shipyard early on the morning of the 29th. But unlike the last round of trials, she looked far more like a passenger ship, having many of her exterior lights brightly illuminated. For 8 days, Icon did more scenario-based drills and maneuvers throughout the Baltic Sea. Early on November 6, under a veil of overcast skies and fog, she returned to Meyer Turku. Construction was almost done, just several more weeks and she would be ready to leave Turku for good. During the latter weeks of November, many inspections and tests were carried out by representatives of the vessel's insurers, der Norske Veritas, and the United States Coast Guard. In order for Icon, or any cruise ship before or after her, to receive a passenger certificate, she must comply with many hundreds and hundreds of regulations, as laid out by SOLAS, or Safety of Lives at Sea. By now, if not already, it was becoming apparent that Icon would soon be on her way to her next destination and phase in life. On November 27, 2023, over 900 days after construction first commenced, Royal Caribbean officially took possession of Icon of the Seas following the signing of various contracts with the shipyard. The ceremony occurred within the giant 363-ton dome in an area known as the Overlook Lounge. In attendance were Royal Caribbean's and Meyer Turku's top executives and 1,200 of Icon's future crew. During the ceremony, Royal Caribbean Group CEO Jason Liberty said the following: "Today we are celebrating more than a new ship. It's also the celebration of the culmination of more than 50 years of innovation and dreaming at Royal Caribbean to create the ultimate vacation experience. Delivering Icon of the Seas represents all that can be accomplished with strong partnerships and a commitment to delivering memorable vacations responsibly, and we thank Meyer Turku and an incredible village of skilled partners for joining us on this journey. The memories millions of families and vacationers will make on Icon will be our greatest accomplishment yet." Michael Bailey also added, 7 years ago, we had an ambitious idea to create the first vacation truly made for every type of family and adventurer. Now, it's in our hands, and in this final stretch, we'll bring it all to life for the biggest debut in our history in January 2024. November 28th was to be the day of departure, but Turku was not quite ready to let go. High winds and low visibility thanks to snow prevented Icon from leaving. Criteria for leaving Meyer Turku are extremely tight for any cruise ship, especially one the size of Icon. For the first nautical mile, all movement need to be done by tugs. After that, onboard propulsion could be used. Because of the minimal clearance of a few feet under the keel to the basin, and the tightness of the channel, winds needed to be minimal, around 4 to 5 knots maximum. Conditions for the next day looked a lot more favorable, so preparations were made to ensure that she could depart the following morning. Dawn broke on the morning of November 29. Icon was ready to leave her birthplace for good. It is always a tough day for the members of the shipyard to see their prized creation leave, so they made it a point to watch her leave. Joined with them were thousands of spectators from Turku brave enough to manage the early cold air and fresh snow. With her smokestacks retracted for the upcoming voyage, and with several blasts of her horn, Icon of the Seas left Turku behind with her builders watching tearfully but feeling proud. Her first destination, Cadiz, Spain, for final construction work. The voyage was certainly not going to be a cakewalk. Apart from the fact that it would be her first time in open waters, and with the weather being less than ideal, a challenging obstacle laid ahead. A 22,000-foot-long suspension bridge known as the Great Belt Bridge, which is a part of a road system connecting mainland Denmark to several large islands to the east. Between the two imposing 833-foot-tall towers is a road that just allows 213 feet of clearance. It is the only way out for any cruise ship leaving Turku. Most famously, Oasis of the Seas and Allure of the Seas crossed under the bridge back in 2009 and 2010 respectively, and they had mere feet of clearance. Icon, like her predecessors, is actually taller than the allowed clearance. In order to get through, her smokestacks had to be retracted, which was done the day before her departure. She also needed to be near dead center on the bridge. It was imperative that she needed to be at or near full speed, which seems like the wrong thing to do. The clearance between the basin floor and Icon's keel was about 65 feet, which is shallow enough to allow for an interesting phenomenon to occur when a ship is moving at faster speeds. By steaming at a quicker rate, a difference in pressure is created between the keel and the bottom of the channel, which would force Icon to essentially squat further down into the water. This phenomenon, as expected, is called the squat effect. It was day 3 of the voyage, and Icon was surrounded by light fog, snow, and high winds. The imposing suspension bridge loomed ahead, and with her smokestacks retracted, course lined up dead center, and moving around 20 knots, she was ready to pass under. She squeezed under with about 6 feet to spare. Icon was now truly out in the open world for the first time. After rounding the northern tip of Denmark, she proceeded down the English Channel, clocking in at around 21 to 25 knots. Early in the morning of December 5th, Icon slowly entered the port of Cadiz under the assistance of several tugs. After dropping off one of her aft port side lifeboats, the tugs nudged Icon into the large dry dock. For the next few weeks, more crew made their way on board to get familiar with the new surroundings. Many of the action-packed venues were tested for the first time, including the 6 water slides located in the Category 6 water park on Deck 16. Most of the work, however, was concentrated on completing the Central Park neighborhood located on Deck 8. Along with the near completion of the dining venues located on either side of the space, and the painting of additional artwork, the over 13,000 plants were installed, transforming the space into a tranquil oasis. On December 21st, Icon exited the dry dock and moored to a nearby pier, which was an indication that the beginning of her long-awaited transatlantic crossing was nearing. Sure enough, on December 22nd, a brightly lit Icon left Cadiz behind. Along her port side balcony cabins, the text "Icon of the Seas" could be read. Throughout the night, she made her way over to Algeciras, Spain, to fully prepare for her 10-day crossing, which included the topping off of her fuel tanks with liquefied natural gas. Christmas Eve 2023 had arrived, and Icon began her transatlantic crossing to the Western Hemisphere. Her next destination, Ponce, Puerto Rico, an industrial cargo port located on the south side of the island. Although many parties and crew events would take place during the crossing, it was not a time to be idle. Plenty of work still needed to be done around various locations around the ship. Nearly 10,000 art pieces needed to be hung and installed. The first dives occurred inside the Aqua Theater, located in the heart of the Aquadome on Deck 15. The first trials in Absolute Zero, an ice skating venue located on Deck 4, were also completed. Various tests and adjustments were made to other venues, including the Category 6 water park. By far the most daunting of these jobs was the unpacking and installation of all the outside deck furniture. By New Year's Day 2024, Icon was entering the outside boundaries of the Caribbean, and hype for her upcoming arrival was at an all-time high. Everyone wanted to get any view they could of this new wonder. Some even managed to find her way off in the distance with one of St. Thomas's webcams. Early in the morning of January 2nd, Icon docked at her first port of call in the Caribbean. For the next few days, as work continued on board, hundreds upon hundreds of locals and maritime enthusiasts gathered near the port to get a good look at her. Following another fueling, she left Ponce behind to head to her last stop before her arrival in Miami, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. She docked there on January 8th. This day, however, will not be one full of tasks and duties to be completed. As a reward for the crew's hard work in getting Icon ready, this day would be a well-deserved break. Part of the festivities was the first testing of the island's newly completed adults-only area, Hideaway Beach. Among the group was the company's top executives, including Michael Bailey and Jason Liberty. The next day was the scheduled day for Icon's arrival into Miami. A huge party was planned for her arrival, and Royal Caribbean wanted to make sure that the weather would be the most ideal for such an event. However, the forecast for most of that day in Florida was not good, so the decision was made to postpone the arrival until January 10th. Following the departure from Perfect Day, Icon maneuvered up and down the eastern coast of Florida. Preparations in the meantime were made on board and at Miami for the first arrival. Many enthusiasts and curious individuals also began to make their way down to the port during the 9th. I myself had the port webcams ready to go on my electronic devices, to watch from the moment I got up that morning. For many, this arrival would be the first time they would get to see this 250,000-ton giant with their own eyes. For others, including myself, this would be the moment that had been 7 years in the making, when Icon would enter her new phase in life. She was no longer going to be some project out in the far distance, or something found online. No, she was now going to be a reality for us, the newest icon of shipbuilding, providing at the very least the best vacation experiences possible at sea. As night encircled the coast, Icon began to make her way towards the mouth of Miami Harbor. She would be the last of the ships to enter that morning. First in would be Virgin Voyage's Scarlet Lady, then Mediterranean Shipping Company's MSC Meraviglia, then Icon. Just as it was during the night of October 19, 2022, it was next to impossible for me to sleep that night. For the next few weeks, as the Maiden Voyage approached, Icon performed several short test cruises. The last of those took place between January 23rd and 26th, and it was known as the Naming Ceremony Cruise, where Icon would be blessed, named, and christened in Miami just before she departed.
The significance of the naming ceremony is, one, we're naming this incredible, iconic ship, and it's a long maritime tradition. It's a very important moment. It's the creation, the birth of something new. This ship, like other ships, will voyage for many years in the oceans of the world. It's kind of a ceremonial, symbolic moment, so it's very meaningful. I think the other reason that a naming ceremony is so incredibly important is that it's really a transition period from everybody who designed, the architects, the builders, the construction, the shipyard. It's a kind of a magical moment where all of this work that took place over many, many years with so much human endeavor, it's now kind of accomplished. And so it's an opportunity to thank people, thank everybody for all of the hard work, recognize teams and people who just went above and beyond over many, many years to create something genuinely quite special and beautiful.
Well, when we wake up every day with our mission of delivering the best vacations in the world, and having that level of focus for 7 years in designing and developing and inspiring what that perfect family vacation is, and knowing all the effort that went into that during that period of time, to be at the point to name the ship, to effectively launch it into that mission is just an incredible day for us. And it's a day that really puts a line on us now being able to go out and deliver the best vacations in the world, and nothing is better than that.
It's been a long and incredible journey, 7 years, and really our dream has now become a reality. And we believe we've created the world's best family vacation. I hope you'll agree. It's been an exciting journey getting to this point with this incredible ship. And it's only the Royal Caribbean family that is capable of creating such an exceptional vacation. Because we have a shared vision, and we've had a shared vision for a long time. It all started with our founder, Mr. Ed Steffen. He had a dream to create a cruise company that sailed year-round from Miami with ships never seen before. And although he is no longer with us, I hope that Mr. Steffen is looking down on us today with a great deal of pride.
Following the conclusion of her final test cruise on the 26th, she spent the entire day at Terminal A preparing for the big day as many of her first passengers began their journeys down to southern Florida. Her LNG tanks were topped off, galleys and food storage fully stocked, minor last-minute adjustments made to different venues, and the thousands of cabins prepared. After more than 7 years of devotion, labor, and passionate hard work, Icon of the Seas is finally here. In the long history of the passenger ship, ocean liners and cruise ships had to earn their spot in history to not only be successful, but to also become a legend. Sometimes it was purposeful, sometimes it was accidental, and sometimes it was purely done through circumstances beyond control. Icon of the Seas has joined that roster of legendary ships that will be studied, revered, and remembered for generations, and she did so well before she entered service. The journey to get here has been a long one. We have examined the family lineage and innovation of Royal Caribbean's previous new builds, of which many had a small or large influence in the trajectory of not only Royal Caribbean, but to the cruise industry as a whole. That very successful family tree now rests upon Icon. She represents the best of the best, and as the first 50 years of Royal Caribbean's history is at an end, Icon now proudly carries the torch forward into the next 50 years. Her stunning design, record-breaking milestones, attention to detail, operation, and focus on families make her a very unique and once-in-a-generation ship. She is and will be a force to be reckoned with. With Icon now officially in service, the momentum continues on. As it was back in the times of the ocean liner, when such a ship came out, the response from the competition resulted in amazing ships in their own right. In the immediate future, new wonders of the cruising industry are certain to appear, all in the wake of the newest legend of shipbuilding and cruising, Icon of the Seas.
You and me stuck on the ocean now, nothing but waves and they're spilling in. I wanna dry up but you just keep on going, don't you? I don't even know how we got here, all my reasoning have disappeared. I wanna bury the hatchet and find the way back to our home, our home, our home. We don't have to drift inside this dome. I will not let us fade away. It's not a price I wanna pay, and it's not too late. No, we lost our purpose, chasing all that surplus. You were all that I need. I feel that we can break free. We can still go back there to a place with no cares. We can turn this ship around. We can turn this ship around all the way back home. Chasing all that we do not have, chasing all that we don't have, chasing all that we do not have, we do not, all the way back home. Chasing all that we do not have, chasing all that we don't have, chasing all that we do not have, we do not. Yesterday we could be ourselves, didn't have much but nevertheless we were true to each other. But now we don't even bother. I remember you being hopeful, but the tall waves have worn us down, and slowly we are drowning. That's why you need to come with me, with me, with me. Turn around 180 degrees and cross the sea. I will not let us fade away. It's not a price I wanna pay, and it's not too late. No, we lost our purpose, chasing all that surplus. You were all that I need. I feel that we can break free. We can still go back there to a place with no cares. We can turn this ship around. we could do so many great things. So believe in me, I believe in you. And I just feel that this will be an upswing. So hear me out. No, we lost our purpose, chasing all that surplus. You were all that I need. I feel that we can break free. We can still go back there to a place with no cares. We can turn this ship around. We can turn this ship around all the way back home. Chasing all that we believe, chasing all that we believe, chasing all that we believe, all the way back home. Chasing all that we believe, chasing all that we believe, chasing all that we believe, all the way back home.
I don't wanna stay here, no. Ain't gonna keep it low now. If you wanna go, let's go. Let's wrap it up and hit the road. I just got an awesome vibe, striking the winner post now. Liberty's on my mind. We've taken off, we've left the ground. You gotta understand that we get one chance, one chance. You will never regret the things that we'll do. 'Cause I wanna drive through the summer night. And when we are old and gray, we'll look back at this summer night. This summer night, this summer night. Sleeping in the back of a van, roaming in the wilderness. We don't ever need a plan. We'll be alright, just you and I. Singing from the top of our lungs, dancing by the lakeside. Gonna do it while we're young. In a moment it will all be gone. You gotta understand that we get one chance, one chance. You will never regret the things that we'll do. 'Cause I wanna drive through the summer night. And when we are old and gray, we'll look back at this summer night. This summer night, this summer night. This summer night, this summer night. Someday we will look back and our hearts will be whole again. I want to remember all that happened to us. 'Cause I wanna drive through the summer night. And when we are old and gray, we'll look back at this summer night. This summer night, this summer night. Oh yeah, oh yeah. This summer night, this summer night. Oh, this summer night.
So here we go again, it's no surprise. 'Cause we know better than to roll the dice. So take this love and try to make it new. You can't fight it when it feels so true. You drive me crazy like no one else. The final moment before I lose myself. And it's no use working 9 to 5 if you want more than to stay alive. my hand. And now that we are cruising in mid-flight, you better watch out for the kryptonite. So come on over, we can make it through, make it through. Take my hand, I know just what to do, just what to do. On the beat, keep dancing through the night, we're dancing. We stay up until the morning light, the morning light falls. So come on over, we can make it through, make it through. Take my hand, I know just what to do, what to do. On the beat, keep dancing through the night. We stay up until the morning light, the morning light falls. As we look up at the stars in the sky, did we ever stop and wondered why we let our love shine all through the night? Just you and me, babe, until the morning light, the morning light. So come on over, we can make it through.